Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're fading, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? A little bit later show tonight. It's going to be that way throughout the rest of the week because I have committee meetings the rest of the week. Tomorrow will probably be another history show. I've got a ballot access committee meeting tomorrow, and this show is to get me nice and lathered up for that work. But before we get started, let's do the typical YouTube stuff. Let's see here. If you enjoy this channel, you can do me a solid by hitting that subscribe key along the bottom there and also giving it a like. I would truly appreciate it. Really trying to get over, I've really plateaued in subscribers. I know this is very niche content, and if I have a few faithful listeners, I'm happy. But I do think I have more listeners, watchers, whatever you want to call it, than actually subscribe, because libertarians are not joiners. I get it. I totally get it. And follow me on my social medias. I'm Karen Ann Harlos pretty much everywhere. Been pretty active lately on Twitter. And lastly, the biggest thing you can do for me is to become a patron. There is patron-only content, a new portion. I don't even want to call it an episode, but installment. That's what I'm looking for. The next installment of the discussion on the problem of political authority will be going up probably tomorrow, and it's on the chapter called The Problem of Predation. So I've been recording that over the past few days, so I would truly appreciate it. You know, give me a Christmas present if you can. Become a patron at patreon.com/Patreon Pink Flame of Liberty, maybe Bunchy will come down if I get some more patrons. And, of course, as always, all super chats matter. Okay, this show is going to be fun. Hopefully it'll be fun. I'm in the middle of writing a Substack. I don't write very many Substacks, but I like to think when I do, they're worthwhile. My last one I wrote that says, we're not in Libertopia now, free speech, blah, blah. I don't even remember the exact title, but actually I've gotten quite a few reads on it. It's pinned to my Twitter profile, but I'm writing one right now on ballot censorship because it just, I've got to stay calm in at least the first 10 minutes of the show to have any hope at monetization, but probably due to the title having to do with elections and things like that, YouTube gets very, very oochie and tends to demonetize those types of shows, but let me at least try to keep it not R-rated with the language in the beginning. But I just see so much about alleged voter suppression. And to be honest with you, these whole allegations about elections, it comes from both sides. The title is a bit link baity because I'm going to criticize both sides. But when it comes to outright voter suppression, no, the Democrats do not give a crap because they engage, as do the Republicans, in equal measure. But they engage in what I will assert is an even more vile and perverse form of voter suppression than what they're accusing the Republicans of doing. And of course, the Republicans squeal. They squeal like stuck pegs over this idea that there's no election integrity and the elections are being stolen. Meanwhile, they're engaging in the biggest frickin' steal that there is in collusion with the Democrats. That's my assertion. Now we're going to go to talk about it and perhaps prove it. So here's like the first draft of my Substack article that will probably be going up tomorrow. I started writing this about a week ago. It's funny. I don't know if anyone else like gets in the writing zone, but you like get in your zone, okay, and you're just, doing Angry Cat on the keyboard, and then you go back and you read it maybe, a few days, week later, you read it, and you don't, not only do you not remember writing it, like, how do I say this without seeming like, I'm not trying to sound conceited, or I want to know if just other people get in this weird fugue zone where you write something, then you go back and read it later and you can't believe you wrote it because it's better than you thought you could do. Not saying it's great writing, but it's better than you thought you could do. That you get like in the zone of the muse. Like I get it when a lot of these people who are actually great writers or great artists say that they just get inspired and they don't know where it comes from. Now, obviously on a much lesser level, but this happens to me all the time. I get in a zone, I write something, and then I read it and I go, I wrote that? Because it's much better than I thought I was capable of. Again, not trying to say it was great, but I must have been super, super pissed off. Super pissed off when, I wrote my first draft of this because I stepped away from it for, it might even have been 2 weeks. And when I read it, I was like, ooh, fire. So I'm going to read it out to y'all. I'll be, again, editing it a little bit. And then we've got a couple other articles to go over. One from, from a blog called The Democracy Paradox. And then one from a left-winging organization called Democracy and Election Agenda for Candidates, Activists, and Legislatures. Okay. Alrighty. Here's at least the working title of my Substack is neither the Democrats or the Republicans care about voter suppression or election integrity. And I absolutely believe that. Okay. So, here we go. Their baloney has a first name. It's HYPOCRISY. While both sides will shamelessly use the average American for their political rhetoric, with one side claiming that minority voters are being intimidated and suppressed, and the other saying elections are being held without integrity, here is the ugly truth. They're right, but not in the way they claim. While without a doubt there are pockets of rigged elections and intimidated voters, the widespread kidnapping and molestation of our electoral rights is not happening in that way. It is happening in the utter and shameless collusion of both of the old parties to stifle competition and limit voter choice, which is frankly evil. And the absolute nerve of them to complain about some uneven playing field for them is beyond galling, while they routinely kneecap third parties and always have. Yet nary a peep from them about that, nor out of the corrupt mainstream media, and precious little out of the alternative media. The average voter has no idea that their choices are being manipulated in that way, so that the whole thing is merely an illusion of choice. This is the great steal that virtually no one is talking about. It is the stealing of your choices without you even knowing about it. And the importance of it is often diminished because it doesn't check any sexy social justice boxes. And that is like, that's it right there. So, subtitle, ballot censorship. The primary way you are entirely screwed out of a fair election is by the artificial limitation of your choices. If in reality you have 10, just to pick a random number, possible choices, but are only allowed to choose between 2, have you really made a free will, well-informed choice? Of course not. If the people who have the power to limit your choices are the two groups whose power may depend upon your choices being limited, how is that anything but corrupt? And retorting that it is legal simply begs the question, since it is the very same people that make the laws and appoint the judges that make rulings on the laws. We investigated ourselves and we found we've done nothing wrong. It's irredeemably rotten. Of course, there are other reasons our country is locked in a death grip of a two-party duopoly, including our voting methods. But if people cannot get on the ballot to begin with in any consistent and significant fashion, the voting methods will not help. Conversely, while being on the ballot would at least give you a choice, the voting method is designed to create a system with two dominant parties. Both of these problems are kept alive by the very people who benefit from them. But today we're going to talk about voter suppression and unethical elections due to ballot censorship through some key examples. These cases can change rapidly, and it's possible that some of them have since resolved, but the fact that they existed in the first place is abominable. And thank you, Mike Seebeck. Oh my God, it's going to get so cold tomorrow. Like, Mike's in Colorado with me. What is it now? Like, tomorrow night, we're allegedly getting snow, and like Thursday, wind chill of minus 17 or something, like absolutely barking moonbat like that. So the examples I intended upon talking about, and I haven't finished writing this out, is Georgia and New York. New York for obvious reasons. We're going to read New York first, and then we'll go back to Georgia. And I think I'm probably going to end up flipping these in the article as well. I'm not completely done writing it. But, so, New York in 2018, Larry Sharpe got over 50,000 votes in his race for New York governor, and thus under the ballot access laws he ran under, the Libertarian Party of New York should have been ballot qualified for 4 years. We're going to do another show, and I'm going to do another Substack article on the difference between ballot access and ballot qualified. We really need to start using those terms correctly. This would mean that their candidates nominated at convention would not need any signatures to get on the ballot, and any candidate running in a primary that were not the nominee at convention would need petitions comprising 15,000 valid signatures. In 2020, the New York legislature snuck in changes to this in a budget bill, stripping the party of the remaining 2 years that it fairly earned and forcing its candidates to get 45,000 valid signatures to even get on the ballot. while major party candidates who are not nominated at their respective conventions but are running in a primary still only have to get 15,000 ballot signatures. So these these candidates from big parties with big donors have to get 15,000 signatures. Meanwhile, independents have to get 45,000. And that's fair? That's not voter suppression? And to add insult to injury, they shortened the petitioning time frame to 6 weeks and moving it from the summer to the spring. And Larry protested, and I need to get the actual quote, that's something I need to add to this, from the government attorney when Larry protested, basically saying, what do you expect? The government giveth, and the government taketh away. And after I read that transcript, I mean, Larry did great in arguing before. God, I understand. You got to make your lettuce for your shoe fetish, honey, but don't be an attorney for the fucking government. Literally, after reading that guy's arguments, like, he knew he was representing the evil empire. I had a shower. I had to shower after reading that disgusting transcript. It stunk to high heaven and was obvious rigging of the game to keep out competitors. The government's justification was that they'll be having public financing of campaigns in the future. And they feared, how anyone could say this with a straight face, they feared that quote-unquote minor party bosses, projection anyone, would take advantage. Most of us listening here have been in minor party politics for a while, and oh my God, is that projection. Minor party bosses? Yeah, we're all just rolling in the bossy bossness. I'm just a boss girl here in my bossy bossiness. It is the duopoly that has party bosses with a history of rigging systems and taking advantage. If ballot qualification had not been stripped from the New York party, this would have been the first time in 80 years that there was a third-party candidate for governor. There were other times where there was candidates who petitioned on as independents, but we're talking about ballot qualified third parties. It would have been first time in 80 years. How in the world is that even remotely fair? So now we're going to move to Georgia. And Georgia has differing thresholds depending upon whether you're talking about the U.S. Senate, which is what Chase Oliver became forced a runoff in. And I fear for the Georgia party. I fear they're going to face the wrath of God, with, that's a nice little election you got there. Too bad if a Libertarian came along and spoiled it. So Georgia's petition, now we're talking about U.S. House and state legislature, not U.S. Senate. 5% of the number of registered voters is so severe that no legislative candidate successfully used the procedure in 2012, except for one candidate for State House, Bill Bozarth. Incumbent independents don't need to petition, so Rusty Kidd didn't petition in 2012. This is all from Richard Winger. No independent has successfully submitted the 5% petition for U.S. House since 1964. And in 1964, the petition wasn't due until October. The signatures weren't checked. They didn't need to be notarized, and no filing fee was needed. In 1964, the law was made worse. The petitions are now due in July. Each sheet must be notarized, and anyone who notarizes any sheets may not petition himself or herself, and a fee equal to 3% of the annual office salary is also needed. No minor party has ever complied with the 5% petition, which passed in 1943. In special elections, no petition is needed. This is just insane. And these are just two states. I'm going to give a link to an article that Richard Winger wrote for the fairvote.org site, which just details out the abominations. And they're trying to take away our good ballot access in Colorado if those top ex-jungle primary people make it here. And hello, everybody. I'm sorry I've missed some of the chat here. So I still got to finish up that article, but I think it's off to a decent fiery start. But here's what kind of got me started down this road a bit here. I got raided on Twitch. I don't even know what that means. Okay. The democracy paradox. Okay. And the title of this article is How Ballot Access Laws Undermine Democracy in America. Oh, it means another channel joined. Okay, I didn't know what rated means. Y'all are teaching me something. So, in 1964, the Libertarian Secretary of, and thank you, Fabian Libertarian, Fabian Liberty. God damn it. In 1964, the Libertarian Secretary of State candidate Steve Dillon won 2.17% of the vote. It was a watershed moment for the Libertarian Party in Indiana. Most states make it difficult for minor political parties to even appear on the ballot in an election. Indiana's laws are notoriously difficult. Didn't we just read that about New York and Georgia? Insane. They require every candidate to petition countless voters. However, they waive the requirement when a party's candidate for Secretary of State wins more than 2% of the vote. So, Steve Dillon's performance was just enough to allow Libertarian candidates automatic access to the ballot for 4 years. Minor political parties in the U.S. face an uphill battle. The electoral system in most states encourage voters to decide between candidates from the two major parties, or as South Park said, a turd sandwich or a giant douche. Indeed, the most significant barrier for third parties is access to the ballot itself. However, the differences confer a very real obstacle to the formation of new political parties. For instance, a presidential candidate must meet the requirements for each individual state. As a result, most third-party candidates for president appear in some states, but not others. It's rare for one to appear in every state. Most parties fail to reach thresholds to retain ballot access, so they devote most of their resources simply towards ballot access. We're going to have... Crap, I forgot what the total is. Do you remember, Mike, what we're going to have to spend on ballot access? It's over $1 million in order just to have the privilege of having the presidential candidate on the ballot. And we are the third largest political party. Imagine what smaller parties, they don't have a chance. This is corrupt rigging, and it's right under your noses. Yet, you see these pathetic talking heads for the duopoly prattling on about voter suppression and election integrity. They do not give a damn, and don't let them fool you otherwise. Most political scientists in America believe the American party system is a consequence of the voting system, which is something I said. It absolutely is. Most states have adopted a first-past-the-post, winner-take-all plurality system for elections, and that encourages two major parties, basically. Minor parties struggle to win support because voters don't want to, quote-unquote, waste their vote for a candidate who has no chance to win. Many countries with similar first-past-the-post elections have far more than just two relevant parties. So the American system is truly unique for its unyielding two-party system. Okay, so again, mostly on the left, you'll hear them, oh my God, democracy is being undermined. It is. Not that I necessarily think that. Listen, y'all know I'm a hardcore libertarian. While I might think, quote-unquote, democracy is a jump forward in human political evolution, I think it's past its prime, it's long in the tooth, but it's what we got now. And for them going on and on about undermining democracy, that's like the guy who continually accuses his wife of cheating while he's got the spicy little side dish. The Democrats and the Republicans are equally complicit in this. but they act like the perpetually aggrieved victim. You want to know what I say to them? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Because until you stop bending over third parties, cry me a river. It says third parties struggle because states impose onerous ballot access laws and other requirements. Republicans and Democrats receive advantages. Third parties and their candidates do not stand a chance when they can't even get on the ballot. Reducing barriers for ballot access is a shockingly simple reform that will do more than anything else to encourage the formation of new political parties. But you want to know what this reminds me of? When you hear about regulations on corporations and things like that, you think that the big corporations don't want more regulation. Yes, they do. Because once you get to a certain size, you can afford it. But you know new upstart competitors can't. The biggest lobbyists for more regulations and burdens on their own industries is the leaders in those industries themselves, because they know it will keep out new competitors. That is exactly parallel to what is going here. Okay. And then it goes on about some more, victories that were had in the Libertarian Party of Indiana so that they're safe for 4 years. But they conclude other political parties simply do not try. They're not even formed. The barriers to ballot access are simply too much, and people decide it's not worth the effort. This is not how democracy is supposed to work. And you so rarely will hear this talked about. Let me give you an example of how it's not talked about. This is a wah-wah. This is they need their nappy changed from a more left publication. The Brennan Center for Justice, Democracy and Election Agenda for Candidates, Activists, and Legislators. I keep saying tours, and it sounds like U-R-E-S when I mean O-R-S. It says, in fundamental ways, our democratic systems urgently need repair. This volume sets out slate a bold policy proposal to move democracy reform to the center of our politics. You would think front and center would be ballot censorship laws, wouldn't you? Got news for you, Eunice. Okay. So, they start to identify problems. Voter participation is distressingly low. The last midterm election, and this came out, let me see when this is dated. This is 2018. So this is a little old. So here's the summary statement. It printed on both sides. So I skipped something. So it starts out with a summary statement. Our democratic systems urgently need repair. Voter turnout in the last midterm was the lowest in 72 years. And again, this is talking about in 2018. Gerrymandering, voter suppression, and dark money mar our elections. Notice what wasn't in there? Ballot censorship. Now, in the unnerving days of the Trump presidency, okay, so this is a Trump derangement syndrome. Not a Trump fan, but it's always constantly pointing at something else, isn't it? We face new challenges to our unwritten democratic norms, the checks on abuse of power that keep us free. Do you mean abuse of power? Like the way you screw over third parties? So it sets out some democracy reforms. And this is written by Brennan Center President Michael Waldman. Okay. So it asks the question, how can we fix American government? Abolish it. But besides that, that's not going to be the answer he gives. Okay. So I'm just going to scan through here for his solution. Whoops, where's page 2? Okay. Okay, trying to find now. It's all blah, 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 blah. Talks about the efforts to manipulate the electoral system. Really? You mean by preventing the formation of competing parties through your stranglehold? No, that's not what you're going to say? Okay. He talks about gerrymandering, okay, and dark money. It says, we will propose solutions to address that crisis and revitalize our system of self-government. Self-government, my right ass cheek. So that it works for all people, not libertarians apparently. To do so, we must move the issue of democracy itself to the center of our politics. Bull. So anyway, it doesn't look like it printed out the whole thing. But anyway, you can tell what their major concerns are. They want to end extreme partisan gerrymandering. I agree. Like the things he noted, I don't disagree with, but I don't think that's the major problem. He's talking about automatic voter registration, bills to expand voting, but not expand voting by having more choices. Ending lifetime felony disenfranchisement. I agree with that. Apparently that was still a thing in Florida in 2018. I don't know if it still is. But nowhere on here is it talking about widespread elimination of first past the post to even out chances of voting, to reduce the alleged spoiler effect, to give more voices a chance. Yeah, you can have different voices as long as those voices are under the Republican or Democrat umbrella. Reminds me of what Ford said. You could have a car in any color you want as long as it's black. That's no choice at all. Again, the turd or the douche. You can have a turd in many different lumps and shapes and smells, but it's still got to be a turd. And the douche can be summer's eve. You can smell like roses or you can smell like vinegar. But it's still a big douche. And Fabian, I'll take you up on that. I don't really, I'm not that big of, where did I put my, I'm such an old lady. Oh, there they are. I dropped my glasses and I'm like, well, they just went under the desk, so I won't be reading anything else. But we're towards the end here. But this is where we need reform. We need reform and giving minor parties the chance to start and the chance to compete and the chance to succeed without having the goalposts continually switched. Yes, I am super pissed off about this. I'm even more pissed off because I feel helpless. Because most people don't know. And it's not in the corporate media's best interest to let them know. It's in the interest of the duopoly and the powers that be to make us think it's just left and right without realizing those two terms are meaningless now and there is so much more. They don't really want a level playing field. Because most people, maybe not even most, let's even forget about that. Some people, which terrifies them, will decide they don't want a turd or a douche. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully I imparted a little bit of my libertarian lather. I am good and lathered up right now. Like, I should go put this productive energy or this frenetic energy to some good use and just go do some productive work. But I hope you all have an awesome evening. I'm on the ballot access committee for the LP, so we're having our committee meeting tomorrow. I hope to do a history show after that, if I haven't frozen to death. Because you saw what Mike Seebeck said. I thought it was wind chill in the -17. He said -40. Those numbers are not computing. they're just too low to even register. But, you know, as the joke was that I put on social media, you know it's cold outside when you go outside and it's cold. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night. And again, if you like this type of content, I really, really do implore you, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty, or a Twitch subscriber, or gifting me your Amazon Prime subscription. You get a free Twitch subscription with your Amazon Prime. Get in touch with me if you have any questions on how to do that. And I hope you have an awesome night. Love you. Talk to you soon.
What you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to